Before we get started, we just want to thank Old Republic Surety for sponsoring this episode of Let's Get Surety, as well as NASBP virtual seminars for the 5th year in a row. For more information on Old Republic Surety, visit www.orsurety.com. Now on to our show.
You're listening to Let's Get Surety. Let me hear your bonding talk with Kat Shamapande.
Hey everyone, it's Kat Shamapande. Welcome to this episode of Let's Get Surety. I've got with me today my co-host Mark McCallum, CEO of NASBP. Hey Mark.
Hi Kat, great to be back.
I always love having you on with me. I know you're excited about today's episode.
I am. We've got some important guests to talk about some critical matters coming up in this congressional cycle.
Yeah,
right?
That's terrific. Yeah, I think we've got the best guests we could have for a topic like this. We've got our very own Larry LeClair, Director of Government Relations at NASBP. Hey, Larry, thanks for being on.
Hey, Kat, thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation here this morning.
And partnering with Larry is Mike Oscar, Director of GR with ASA, or the American Subcontractors Association. Hey, Mike.
Hey, how are you? Thank you, Kat, and thank you, Larry, as well as Mark, for allowing me to join the program today.
I know you guys work together closely on the Hill, so it's great to have you two here with us on this podcast together as well.
Thank you.
Yes, we do.
So before we dive into the topic, Larry, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and about what you do in your role with us at NASBP?
Of course, Kat. Yes. Well, as you mentioned, I'm Director of Government Relations at NASBP, and that takes on a number of different roles within the association. I'm the Chief Lobbyist on Capitol Hill, so I represent the association on the Hill, but I also do a lot of state advocacy as well. Follow all the states, track legislation there, and also when requests come in, whether it be for legislation or comments on regulatory matters, that's pretty much that falls within my bailiwick as well. So I'm a master of all trades and an expert on none.
Larry, that is a lot of work for one man. What size is your team?
That'd be me and the guy behind me. No, I've got a tremendous amount of help, not just myself, but Mark McCallum takes on a big role in the advocacy as well, and certainly we have in-house counsel as well. We have a general counsel, so it's not just only me. It's there are other folks that I spread the wealth with as well,
and we have wonderful volunteers as well that
the
help
Government
us with
Relations
our
Committee
network.
That's right. The government relations folks, those members that serve on that committee, certainly I rely on their expertise and their knowledge and grassroots support as well. So it's not just me, it's certainly the volunteers that play a big role.
And all those great relationships they've built with their elected officials.
Absolutely. Yeah. Grassroots is all local. Politics is local, as Tip O'Neill once said. So that's right. I mean, it's getting to know folks at the local level. That's important.
That's awesome.
I imagine, Larry, that relationships are pretty important when it comes to advocacy in Washington. So it's very nice that we have Mike, because that's one of our critical relationships is with the American Subcontractors Association.
That's right. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about ASA, or the American Subcontractors Association?
Sure, I'd be glad to. And just want to echo what Larry mentioned. I have a similar hat within the government relations space within the American Subcontractors Association. We've been around since 1966. We represent roughly 3,000 subcontractors across the country in multiple trades, multiple crafts. We represent union contractors, non-union subcontractors as well. But I think just to add two additional points to what Larry was mentioning for us, in addition to our committee, and I'm very happy to have two co-chairs, Gloria Howell from California Glazing Contractor, and Courtney Little, who's our past president, as well as a glazing contractor from Arkansas. But we oversee about 96 members in our committee. When I came on, roughly now going on 5 years ago, that committee was primarily made up of more legal experts than it was subcontractors. So I'm very pleased to know that we do have our subs making these decisions. And we're really an advisory committee to the full board. The other thing that we did this year, believe it or not, since our inception, our committee wasn't ever officially recognized in the bylaws. And so we went through that committee process. As you probably have gone through committee process, it can be a little grueling. A lot of, also we're dealing with political affairs, legislative affairs, a lot of opinions. But what we tried to do is establish, kind of like the Supreme Court, we have 9 voting members, so dealing with PAC contributions or really looking to determine of the 9, which is made up of our committee, the board, et cetera, to get a quorum or an agreement on how we're going to take a position on a piece of legislation and going on to the board. Also under my responsibilities is we have contract documents, so working with consensus docs, working with the AIA documents. As you know, this is procurement. It's not exciting stuff. It's not above the fold of the newspaper, but it does get to our guys.
Speak for yourself.
I know, right? I know. But it is important for our members' bottom line. So we oversee them. We're constantly looking at those new additions. For example, during COVID, the force majeure clause, not many people were necessarily aware of that, and it came to the forefront. And then the final piece is my oversight of working with my team. We have 2 people in addition to myself on our attorneys council looking for our legal defense fund, because we do have a subcontractor legal defense fund taking on cases where we feel the subcontractor has been impacted, usually at the pellet level. So we'll get involved. We'll do an amicus brief, in terms of taking a position on behalf of a friend of the court brief, on behalf of either the defendant or the plaintiff. And we've worked with you on that, where bonding has been a part of that discussion. So thank you.
Mike, you must have a large team too. That's a lot you're covering.
Yes, we have again myself, Shannon, who works with me overseeing the Attorneys Council, and then we have Kate as well working behind the scenes, making sure all these papers and documents are getting out. We're very happy, first flying in almost 4 years due to COVID coming up and being done this year, so it's nice to bring people back. So all that behind the scenes, and then in addition to the committee.
That's terrific.
So I think we have enough hands on deck to try to get this done, right, Larry?
That's right. I mean, you could always use more hands on
absolutely. Deck. Absolutely. 100% on that.
Well, I know this is a very busy period for you gentlemen, particularly when you're closer to the beginning of a congressional cycle and not towards the latter stages. And I know you also have hands full with states as well during their legislative seasons. But, particularly at the federal level, are there opportunities that you are seeing for both organizations in this Congress? And is any of that a continuation from past work? So maybe, Larry, I'll let you start off first, and Mike will join in, I'm sure.
Thanks, Mark. Certainly to your point of a continuation, we do have legislation that we're supporting in this Congress, the beginning of the 118th Congress, dealing with what is termed WIFIA, Water Infrastructure Finance Innovation Act. That's similar to what was adopted in the infrastructure bill last Congress through the transportation side, through the TIFIA program. Essentially what WIFIA does, it allows for the flow of federal loan and grant funds to state and localities.
And that's for water infrastructure?
That's for water. The TIFIA piece was for transportation, roads and bridges. This particular opportunity is for water projects for the state and the localities. There appears to be what we believe a disconnect between the bonding requirement in WIFIA and whether or not there actually is a bonding requirement or not.
So there's not clarity.
It's not clear as to whether or not there's a bonding piece on the WIFIA project similar to TIFIA. So what we're doing is we're pursuing legislation right now that will actually sew that bonding requirement up for not only loan and grant funds, but should there be public-private partnerships involved as well. There's also, it's not clear whether or not P3s are bonded through the WIFIA loan and grant fund opportunity. So this legislation basically says if you're receiving loan and grant funds or through a public-private partnership agreement, then performance and payment bonds need to be required, similar to what we did with the TIFIA loan program.
Now, is that to protect the federal tax dollars that flow down, or what is?
Yes, that would protect federal taxpayer funds along with providing payment protection to Mike's members, the subcontractors, second-tier subs, and suppliers on those particular WIFIA loan and grant fund opportunities. Exactly.
Great.
Yes.
So I'm just curious, why now on that piece of legislation?
Yeah.
Well, I think certainly we've been successful through the transportation piece, so we want to keep that momentum.
Is that kind of like a model?
It is. I mean, so we were successful on the transportation side. We want to make that a model for the water side as well. The water reduction. Every 2 years, they authorize infrastructure projects for water as well. That was reauthorized in 2022. It's coming up for reauthorization again in 2024. So we want to make sure that those loans or grants that are flowing through water projects have bonding requirements as well.
So it sounds like the time is now to try to do this.
The timing is an opportune time to actually enact legislation to protect water, the water bill that's going to be coming up in 2024.
Okay.
That's right.
So Mike, if there's not clarity on whether or not there's a payment bond that's going to be required, I imagine that's of great concern to your members.
Yes, and not only for the payment bond, but also the performance bond, because it does give us the opportunity to ensure that our members have the payments and the financial backing in place, as well as they have the experience and the ability to do those types of projects. And we see a lot of public-private partnerships. That's really the flavor of the year, the flavor of the week in the construction industry right now. We see that a lot outside of water and transportation projects, but we see that in healthcare. We see that involved in some of our industrial plants and so forth. So we felt, to Larry's point, that as we saw the transportation infrastructure momentum coming through with the bipartisan infrastructure bill, to include that language, which, by the way, we had a standalone bill in the last Congress. It passed out of the Senate 97-0 to get 100 senators to agree on anything, but let alone to have unanimous consent was pretty exciting.
That's impressive.
Yeah, and that went through the amendment process, which was, again, we hear a lot of, to quote our president, malarkey in Congress. They don't get along, but 27 Republicans, 26 Republicans, when the Democrats controlled both the houses, came along to support that overall infrastructure bill, and then they took that support, obviously, and accepted our language in the bill for it to make an amendment. And now we're just trying to your point, build off of that. But for us, getting back to Mark's question on that, is for performance and payment bonds for water infrastructure projects, our locks, dams, as well as wastewater treatment facilities, anything water related. That's a lot of work for us.
Yeah.
So, the last piece of legislation was more on the air, surface related transportation work, but we also do a lot of water transportation, water infrastructure and transportation related projects.
Right, and from what you're saying, both of you have said, it sounds like, so these loans and grants not necessarily just go to public entities like states, municipalities, but they could be going to private entities, and then that throws in a lot of uncertainty as to what might apply in the way of protection. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mark. And certainly if you looked at the state levels, we know that probably 20 states have P3 enabling language requiring performance and payment bonds. So it's a very minority number as far as at the state level is concerned. This would actually make sure that if your state doesn't have a requirement for bonding P3s, this legislation, H.R. 1740, make sure that is in play, and there are performance and payment bonds in place.
So it sounds like it's a safeguard.
It's a safeguard. That's right.
If there are applicable requirements in place, then those prevail.
They prevail.
But if there's not, now you have a safeguard, a catch-all to make sure there's protection.
This particular bill does not supersede state law. If you have a state law in place that requires performance and payment bond on P3 agreements, then you look to the state level statute first. If not, then you look to HR 1740 if enacted into law.
So it sounds like to me that it's pretty common sense, good government type of measure. It also sounds like, is this bipartisan?
It has. It was introduced on a bipartisan basis. The authors on the TIFIA bill are no longer on the Committee of Authorization or Authority over this particular legislation. So they are signed on as co-sponsors. That's Stephen Lynch from Massachusetts, Troy Balderson from Ohio. The lead authors on the bill now are Mr. Bost from Florida and Mr. Pappas, the Democrat from New Hampshire. So you have two Democrats, two Republicans that are sponsors of the bill.
What's the number of the bill again?
It's HR 1740.
Now, is there a Senate corollary at this point?
Not as of yet. That is something certainly that the associations that are supportive of the bill are working on to garner support in the Senate side as well.
So we're looking for help.
We're looking
in the
for
Senate.
a Senate sponsor. Exactly.
Right. So if you're listening,
well, they need to know that TIFIA was 97-0, right?
Amendment, so yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah. Well, Mike, so we talked about 1740. Are there other important matters that you're working with us on to advance in this Congress?
Yes, actually, the second piece of legislation that is equally important to both associations and also to the other members of the Construction Industry Procurement Coalition, which is made up not only of our groups, but about 14 other similarly situated construction-related groups as well.
That's a big group.
It is, yes. And AGC, as well as the maps and surveyors, the design build community, the AIA, et cetera. But that legislation actually started its way through the process in the 115th Congress, and we're now in the 118th Congress. So it
moves really fast.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So that's about a 6-year cycle.
Yeah.
Every 2 years we get a new Congress, and what we have done is in that entire process is we've continued to educate, just like we're doing on WIFIA, just like we've done on TIFIA. We're educating members of Congress that may not be at the forefront for understanding the importance of a change order and understanding the implications of when that change order has been introduced and what the response time is to it and what that really means for us as subcontractors, because ultimately we're in the construction business. We're not in the banking business. And unfortunately, with a lot of these contracts that we sign, the last thing after everything has been resolved will then be the payment on the change order. So we're trying to work with legislation to address that. And it's very clear. It says if 50% of the change order is complete, then 50% of that change order should be paid out. Now, if I may, quickly, a short little story. In the last Congress, the big debate because this bill has jurisdiction both in the House Small Business Committee, as well as ultimately we're trying to get it into the National Defense Authorization Act, which is passed every year to fund and support our armed services. So it has oversight in the Armed Services Committee. And what happened was, in those discussions, there's a piece in the legislation which is right in line with the Federal Acquisition Regulatory Guide, as well as under the overall government guidance for all government contracts that says estimated cost is what always is the language referred to change orders. There was a great debate of whether or not they were going to change estimated to incurred cost. And that ultimately means we have to put all the money out with any estimates being considered. So we were able to get over that hump, explain the rationale for why we used estimated over incurred, and we feel pretty good. It is bipartisan, just like WIFIA. We have Mark Veazey from Texas Democrat on board, Brian Fitzpatrick from Pennsylvania. We have Stahlberg from Minnesota Republican, and Scott Peters from California Democrat. So we feel good about it. It is both of these bills, this one in particular, but the WIFIA bills are also in two pieces of legislation important to not only to the construction industry procurement coalition, but also to the Congressional Procurement Caucus.
Right.
Okay.
So at a caucus level within Congress, they see the value of these two pieces of legislation.
And the number again on this bill
is 2726, HR 2726.
And again, we're looking for more people to sign on in Congress.
Yes.
And a Senate corollary, right?
Yes.
Ideally, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
ideally.
Yes.
Not sure necessarily if we're going to, work to get a Senate Carlisle. I mean, it would be nice to do that, or a companion bill. I think this will really just end up being a discussionary point as the National Defense Authorization Bill moves forward, both in the House Armed Services, Senate Armed Services Committee, and then equally within the House Small Business Committee and Senate Small Business
Okay,
Committee.
so that might be the vehicle
Yes.
To move it.
Yes.
Yeah, through Congress.
Well, it's exciting to learn about all that you guys are doing. You guys have to be incredibly busy. Larry, if any of our members at NASBP or if any of your members at ASA want to get involved, reaching out to their elected officials, where can they go to get more information that they can use to reach out to their elected officials? Because I know it's always better to hear from their constituents, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
That's right. And both of these items are on our website. We have a one-pager that's available, certainly for HR 1740, for the WIFIA bill that's available.
Oh, that's great.
And I would always encourage grassroots support to your local member of Congress, whoever represents you in that particular district. Certainly on the House side, as well as we had said, we're still looking for a Senate companion. So any support into some of these your Senate office is also very much appreciated. So, and I'm happy as a staffer to help with any sort of draft letter if our members don't feel comfortable sending those letters.
Oh, that's great.
Want to send me a draft first? I'm certainly happy to take a look at that.
Great.
And how about you, Mike? How about the ASA members?
Same thing. It's on our website. We do advertise it.
And your website?
On our website, or on the American Subcontractors Association website, as well as we put it out in our Contractors Compass, which is our quarterly magazine.
Oh, great.
We'll be updating on there. We'll also be doing it through our weekly update through ASA Today. So we can certainly get that message out to our membership when they want to get involved. Now, as it moves through committee, we also use the vehicle Voter Voice, which allows us the technology to, really get our members engaged beyond just coming into Washington or making phone calls. What they can do is we put a Voter Voice campaign out. We tell them that the bill's moving. We write the, obviously, support language for that. All they have to do is they get an email, they click on the link, they put their name, address, and they hit the send button, and then that member of Congress has then been told and identified that we either would we want them to support both of these pieces of legislation. And then it's just a lot of work beyond us, both Larry and I, just getting the members more educated, the staffers, et cetera, on these two issues.
Wow. Important stuff.
Important
Thank you.
stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you guys both for being on with us today. It's been great listening and finding out more about these advocacy efforts that are taking place on the behalf of all of our members.
Thank you.
My pleasure, Kat. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Mark, for having us.
Same here.
You've been listening to Let's Get Surety, brought to you by the National Association of Surety Bond Producers. For more information about the NASBP and its members, visit nasbp.org.
Before we go, we just want to say thank you again to Old Republic Surety for their generous support in sponsoring this episode of Let's Get Surety. For more information on Old Republic Surety, visit www.orsurety.com.